No greater life than a life lived free. Trust the skies, adapt like the water, explore the uncharted. Let's discuss the Oath of the Open Sea Paladin in the Tal'Dorei Reborn Critical Rulebook today on Flutes. Let's check out the Oath spells. At 3rd level, you get Create or Destroy Water and Expeditious Retreat. 5th level, Augury and Misty Step. 9th level, Call Lightning and a new spell specific to this subclass, Freedom of the Waves. 13th level, Control Water and Freedom of Movement. 17th level, Commune with Nature, and another custom spell for this subclass, Freedom of the Winds. Freedom of the Waves allows you to conjure a deluge of seawater in a 15-foot radius, 10-foot tall cylinder, centered on a point within range, 120 feet. This water takes the form of a tidal wave, a whirlpool, a water spout, or another form of your choice. Each creature in the area must succeed on a strength saving throw, or take 2d8 bludgeoning damage and fall prone. You can choose a number of creatures equal to your spellcasting modifier to exclude from this, allowing them to automatically succeed, which is extra useful because it's a save or suck spell. There's no half damage or anything from a successful saving throw. If you are within the spell's area, as part of the action you use to cast the spell, you can vanish into the deluge and teleport to an unoccupied space that you can see within the spell's area. This reminds me of the Torrent ability in Dota 2 for the hero Kunkka, where he makes water spout from the ground, but he can't teleport through it, so that's cool. I really like the idea of this spell. It's a 3rd level spell for a paladin, which is a costly spell slot to use. I wonder why they only allowed 2d8 bludgeoning damage and falling prone. That seems kind of underwhelming, but I really like that you can teleport as the same action as you cast it if you're within the deluge. Freedom of the Winds, range self, concentration up to 10 minutes. Wind wraps around your body, tugging at your hair and clothing as your feet lift off the ground. You gain a flying speed of 60 feet. Additionally, you have advantage on ability checks to avoid being grappled, and on saving throws against being restrained or paralyzed. When you are targeted by a spell or attack while this spell is in effect, you can use a reaction to teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. If this movement takes you out of range of the triggering spell or attack, you are unaffected by it. The spell then ends when you reappear. Flight, that's great. Advantage against grapples, restraints, paralysis, that's good too. It's kind of like Freedom of Movement, which is also on the spell list, but you get more out of it, but it does require concentration. My favorite part is this part where if you're targeted by a spell or attack, you can use your reaction to teleport 60 feet, potentially making someone waste their spell or their attack. I think that's a great ability. It just comes online at very high levels. If it came online sooner, that would be very interesting. If your DM allows you to be a bard who can take this spell with magical secrets, which I think is a stretch since this is like a subclass specific spell, but maybe your DM would be down for it, that would be pretty cool for your bard. I say that because bards can get it at level 9 instead of, level 17 for a paladin. This would also make a cool magic item to give a character so that they can activate it as if they're concentrating on the spell if they wouldn't normally get the spell. Good inspiration for a magic item. Let's check out the Channel Divinity options. Marine Layer. As an action, you channel the sea to create a thick cloud of fog that surrounds you for 20 feet in all directions. The fog moves with you, remaining centered on you and making its area heavily obscured, like the Fog Cloud spell would do, though the Fog Cloud spell wouldn't radiate from you. You and each creature within 5 feet of you instead treat this area as lightly obscured. This fog lasts for 10 minutes, spreads around corners, and cannot be dispersed unless you choose to end this effect, with no action required to do that. So this is fantastic. It reminds me of warlocks who get the darkness spell and then add in the Devil's Sight invocation so they can see through the darkness. Enemies inside won't be able to see to cast spells on the warlock, and attacks will have disadvantage against the warlock, etc. But in this case, it's a fog cloud, not a cloud of magical darkness, so it can't be dispelled by higher level sun-based spells. It also cannot be dispersed like a usual fog cloud could be. So wind is not going to thwart it, which is amazing. It also has the friendly fire ability. Anyone who's within 5 feet of you as your ally can see through the cloud as if it's lightly obscured instead of heavily obscured, which means they actually can see. You could make yourself quite the turret for your ranged allies with their crossbows and their eldritch blasts or whatever to attack with advantage from inside the marine layer because they can see out of it, but no one can see you inside of it, making you unseen attackers. It'll make it so enemy spellcasters can't counterspell you, can't target you with spells if it requires them to see you. This ability is fantastic. Some have speculated that they think it's overpowered, it's not good design. I'm not sure it's overpowered, but it's definitely good, and it makes me want to play this subclass. Like, so far it's just got a lot going for it, and it's only going to get better. But this marine layer really is like the standout feature for this paladin. The other channel divinity option is Fury of the Tides. As a bonus action, you channel the powerful might of the waves to bolster your attacks for 1 minute. Once per turn for the duration, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can choose to push the target 10 feet away from you. If pushed into an obstacle or another creature, the target takes bludgeoning damage equal to your charisma modifier. If you're fighting a bunch of creatures who have tremor sense or blind sight, where they don't worry about your marine layer fog cloud you can summon. You might use this instead, and it's a lot of fun to push creatures around, and not just push them around, but push them into things so that they take, let's say, 4 points of bludgeoning damage from your charisma at this point. It's notable that this one only requires a bonus action for you to activate, which could be the difference in some situations of whether you choose Marine Layer or Fury of the Tides, because sometimes you can't afford an action to set up the Marine Layer, or your allies aren't near you to take advantage of it. So I like that there's this other option for you that still feels cool, though it's not as good. Alright, let's see what the Oath of the Open Seas Paladin Aura type ability is at level 7. While you're not incapacitated, you and the creatures of your choice within 10 feet of you cannot be grappled or restrained, and ignore penalties on movement and attacks while underwater. I'm assuming to read this as that's two separate things, so you and your allies cannot be grappled or restrained, which makes it interesting that the Freedom of the Wind spell makes it so you have like advantage against being grappled and stuff, because you already have immunity to that condition via your Aura of Liberation. That's kind of a weird design choice. And then separately, while underwater, you ignore penalty to movement and attacks. Usually if you have a swimming speed, you can ignore the penalties for using like a great sword underwater that would usually give you disadvantage. Because not all of your allies are going to have a swim speed, so this can really help them out, but they have to be within 10 feet of you, so it's a little bit difficult to use. Creatures that are already grappled or restrained when they enter the aura can spend 5 feet of movement to automatically escape unless they are bound by magical restraints. So this is interesting because those creatures that are already grappled or restrained have a speed of 0, so I assume when it says they can spend 5 feet of movement, they're kind of overcoming the fact that their speed is 0, and since they'll automatically break out, you can kind of assume that, like, they're going to get their movement back, right? Because they're automatically breaking out. So it makes sense, but it could make someone be like, for a second, as it did me. As normal, when you reach 18th level, the aura expands to 30 feet, which will be much more easy to use. This might seem meh to some people, but as you get to higher levels and you fight a lot more like huge creatures or like many tentacled creatures or biting creatures, it's good to not be able to be grappled or restrained. This actually can make you immune to some of the deadliest monsters, like a vampire lord who makes a claw attack, and if they hit, they can grapple you as part of that attack, and then they bite you, which is their nastier attack. But if you can't be grappled or restrained, that vampire effectively can never bite you. A lot of other creatures, they try to bite you and then you're like restrained in their mouth, and then they can try to swallow you, but you cannot be restrained or grappled, so it won't work on you. So even though you might think like grappled or restrained of like other humanoids trying to grapple you, which isn't a big deal and doesn't come up as often, there are some monsters who have grapples and restraints built into their attacks, and it doesn't cost them extra action economy to utilize those. This aura is better than I thought at first when I really gave it some thought, and maybe you'll give it that same leeway once you consider those higher level monsters. At 15th level, you get Stormy Waters. You can call on the force of crashing waters as a reaction whenever a creature moves into or out of your reach. The creature takes 1d12 bludgeoning damage and must succeed on a strength saving throw against your spell save DC or be knocked prone. This is kind of lame actually, because you might be better off just using your reaction to make an opportunity attack. But if they disengaged you, you still have this option, which is nice. It can also be used when a creature enters your reach, so when someone's approaching you, you might knock them prone. If you're using a polearm and you don't have the polearm master feat for some reason, you have reach, so when they get within 10 feet of you, you can potentially knock them prone with this, and then they might not have enough movement to reach you, so you could effectively cancel out their action economy for the turn. But also creatures that are running up to you are often going to be strong, and that's why they're using melee attacks, and so a strength saving throw isn't great. So there's some pros and cons to this. It's a nice option aside from your opportunity attack, or if you're using Freedom of the Winds at highest levels to teleport away from attacks and spells. But yeah, I wish there was just like maybe one more thing going for this one. It's kind of meh, even though it has like some niche times when you might try to use it. It's just not very impactful. I like the flavor though, the force of crashing waters and all that stuff. At level 20 you get Mythic Swashbuckler, which is this subclass's signature transformation that paladins get at level 20. As an action, you embrace the spirits of the sea to gain the following benefits for 1 minute. Advantage on strength athletic checks, and a climbing speed equal to your walking speed, or double your climbing speed if you already have one. If you are within 5 feet of a creature and other creatures are within 5 feet of you, you have advantage on attack rolls against that creature, so you like to be a duelist going one-on-one. You can take the dash or disengage action as a bonus action, so you're like a mini rogue. You have advantage on dexterity checks and dexterity saving throws against effects you can see, and you can do this once per long rest. So it doesn't give you a swimming speed, but your aura, without giving you a swimming speed, kind of gave you a swimming speed, which is interesting. Advantage in one-on-one combat, disengage and dash easily, so that mobility could be nice at high levels. Advantage on dex checks, dexterity saving throws, climbing speed. This really pales in comparison to other paladin transformations, but it's okay, and it's level 20, right? So Most people won't ever see this ability used, but there it is. I would have made this one a bonus action to activate because unlike some of the other paladin transformations that use an action, I don't think you get as much value out of this one. If you're just starting combat and you're far away from your enemies though, you might just use your action to start this and then use your bonus action from it to dash so that you can try to get into combat, catch up to what's going on, or start climbing up a wall since you'll gain a climbing speed. There's some ways you can use it for sure. It's just not as dazzling as other paladin capstones. So despite some of the weird design choices and interactions between some of the abilities and the custom spells, I give this subclass a 5 out of 5. It actually makes me want to play a paladin, which usually I'm not very interested in the class. I like the theme a lot, and I like that it flavors all the abilities with like water and freedom, and it's very cool. If it didn't have that marine layer channel divinity, it might only be a 4 out of 5 for me, but I think it's pretty well designed. They could have done a little bit more with some of the abilities, but I'd be happy to play this type of paladin. If I was doing a power build, I don't know if this would be it. Taking 3 levels of this paladin so you can get divine smites and the marine layer channel divinity could be really great, especially for some clerics who are looking to gain those divine smites to scale with their leveling, or maybe a sorcerer who wants armor and then marine layer is a great anti-spell casting ability. So a lot of the power builds, optimization builds that involve paladins would actually maybe like a 3-level dip from this very much, but most of them like to go for the auras at level 6 and level 7. I forgot to mention that this was played as a custom subclass for Ford, played by Travis in the Mighty 9 Campaign 2, and I only remember him using Marine Layer once, and I don't think it worked very well for him at that point. I'm trying to remember. But regardless, it's a great ability, and I like the subclass a lot. What do you think of it? Am I overrating it? Do you think it's overpowered because of that Marine Layer? I'd love to hear your opinions. Check out my article for all of the Tal'Dorei subclasses, and check out my video series on them. And don't forget to put a marine layer on the like and subscribe button down below if you haven't already. Have a great adventure this weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.